Well, good evening and welcome, or good morning, depending on where in the world you are. My name is Liz Baré, and I am welcoming you to this webinar on HR in HE, responding to the COVID-19 crisis. It's the latest in a series of online events organised by the Association of Commonwealth Universities to help member universities in this changing world. We have a wide audience from right across the Commonwealth. But before we start, I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the past and present elders of the Kulin Nation and acknowledge their custodianship on the land on which I am working today. This is a way in Australia that we acknowledge the first peoples of this land. The ACU is proud of how its member universities have responded to the coronavirus pandemic, springing into action to help find solutions to the problems and also to protect staff and students. In these extraordinary times, international collaboration matters more than ever. There is much to learn from each other and from the innovation and ingenuity that has been demonstrated during this period. That's why ACU is delighted to be hosting this series of online events to enable members to stay connected. This year too, our HR and HE Community Conference will be delivered virtually in September. So please keep checking the ACU website for details on this and other upcoming events. This webinar is delivered to you by members of the ACU HR in HE community, a forum for all staff at ACU member universities working in HR at all levels, from the most experienced professionals to those looking to increase or expand their institution's HR capacity. We welcome you to join the community. Just email hrinhe@acu.ac.uk. After our presenters' sessions, we are going to have a Q&A session. So please submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and typing in your questions. Include your name, your university, and your country. The questions will be monitored by the ACU, and as we have a limited amount of time, a number of them will be selected to be answered by myself or other speakers. We're recording this seminar, so if you don't want your name or university to be included in the Q&A session, mention this when you submit your question. COVID-19 has disrupted life globally, and the higher education sector is no exception. HR has been the forefront of supporting universities' response to this crisis. I'm now going to speak very, very briefly about what's been happening in Australia. So, what's been happening? Well, one thing that's happened in Australia and New Zealand and the Pacific has been there's a lot of success in flattening the curve, but we're still very vulnerable to potential outbreaks and second wave infections. So there has been a lot of work, both from universities and our medical institutes, and a great contribution to local management of the pandemic. There's been some government support to businesses to minimise job loss. And like many, many other countries, we've had lockdown restrictions and restrictions on interaction for others. We're working from home, we're learning from home. Our borders are closed, and there's mandated quarantining for anybody who comes in. We're now seeing the gradual easing of restrictions, with some workplaces open, schools are returning, there's massive testing and contact tracing, but borders remain closed. This is a real problem for Australian and New Zealand universities, because many international students who would have come here to study at our universities can't get here or have decided not to come. So there is about a 20 to 30% cut in university revenue for this year. Our academic years are calendar years. There is questions, will the students ever come back? There are a whole lot of foreign policy issues around relations with China that are swirling around at the moment. And there is no additional government funding for long or short-term job loss in universities. So that's an issue. So a lot of the current focus in Australia in universities has been, how are we going to manage the financial crisis? unions and representatives of universities attempted to negotiate a deal to save jobs. And they're pretty standard things like pay reductions, time fraction reductions, freezing appointments, redundancies at the last resort, and cessation of other expenditure other than on staffing. One of the things in this deal was that there was a joint union management committee to oversee the implementation of the deal. So that deal was sort of announced around the 13th of May. By the 26th of May, the deal is off the table. Many universities have rejected the deal in principle, and they're now seeking to negotiate alternate arrangements. So they're exploring all sorts of options. One university is talking more or less from borrowing from staff. It's saying, you give us some of your annual leave credits now, and in 5 years' time, we'll give them back to you. It's sort of a loan. Others are talking about redundancies, and others are trying to take a strategic position. How do we realign our structure with where we want to go in the future with the financial reality? So there's a lot of turmoil at the moment. At my university, we're very important in the research into COVID-19. We're very proud of the work that we're doing. And of course, after the 16th of March, when strong restrictions came in, staff worked from home, all learning was online, there's a lot of support for staff to work in new modes. In HR, the picture was really a welfare type picture, expanding the existing welfare services, COVID testing, paid quarantine leave, family leave entitlements. So that is the HR role. One of the HR roles is to look after staff, just as the university is looking after students. And the second is, how do they manage the future? How do we manage the future? And so the university is putting a proposal, which it did today, or actually yesterday, to the union and to negotiate with the unions that cover our university, that the university will cease capital work, cut executive pay. They're seeking a reversal of a salary increase that has just occurred, and they're trying to give some guarantees about redundancy. They're looking to reduce holiday leave balances and having some joint union university oversight. And the staff are going to vote on that on the 9th of June. So I'm sure that, like in many other countries, what is happening here is a fast-moving event, and that there are many mistakes being made and many innovative ideas coming forward.